Alright, students, fine. Girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, a very special good evening to everyone. Hope you all are well and good, learning, studying, working, preparing back at your homes and respective places. Right? Otherwise, me Shabnam, as usual, from the code Ark, aiming to deliver a lot of technologies to people out there. Yes, Navin, good evening. Rakesh, good evening. And others also, good evening. Fine. Okay, otherwise audibility, visibility all clear, and are we set to go ahead? Please acknowledge to me in the chat section. By the time I continue with a quick recap of what we have done the class last time, then we'll shortly come to your doubts, if any, questions, if any. Yes, the notes are yet left from our side to be sent to you. In fact, one of our team member will do right during the classes going on, or I myself will do it before 6 p.m. today. Is that fine? Okay. All clear. ठीक है, fine. The class last time we started with the concept of object-oriented programming, and I told you that's a VVIP concept in any programming language that support OOPs or the principle of OOP. Is that okay? Number one. Number two, object-oriented programming talks everything in terms of classes and object, where before coding for an object we design the object first. Am I right? So many examples I gave you that day. For example, say the company Nokia or Samsung, we want to manufacture this phone. Of course, we won't directly start working on the manufacturing process. The design will be created first. Out of 10, 20, 30, 40, many would be rejected, but the one which will be approved will be converted into end product. Correct? Fine. So that design model only here we better term as nothing but a class. Okay, so the object or a model is designed first, and once the design, that is a class, is ready, we create many copies out of it. These copies are called as nothing but objects of the class. Good. Fine. Once you define an object of the class, initialize object of the class, everything that belongs to class by default will also be inherited or will also belong to its object. I hope you got my point. That's one thing. Okay, next, so that we don't have to okay, before that, every class has two characteristics. A class code is composed of two characteristics, that is properties and functions. Class last time we could only create the properties, we were yet left to create functions in the class. Like any object that we see around us has some properties which are attribute, who always define the look of the object, wo dikhta kaisa hai, and functions, that means the use of that particular object. Is that okay? So if I hold this mobile phone in my hand, it looks black. It has some thinness or thickness. So all these are nothing but the attributes of this phone. But what is it used for? Maybe it's used for calling someone or texting or clicking photograph or searching social media, surfing the internet. So all these are nothing but the functions of the phone. Am I right? Fine. So that's called as nothing but the properties and function. So every object that we see in a real world, the way it has some property, some function, similarly in the object-oriented programming world will also have properties and function, so that we don't have to define values to the property manually. ये बात ज़रा ध्यान से सुनिए. Navin, I'll come to your answer. Okay, I'll come to your question. Give me a moment of time. So that we don't have to define, or we don't have to always manually assign values to the properties, we have some concept called as constructor. There is a class right in front of you, here called as an animal. You see animal has height, animal has weight, animal has a color. So that we don't have to define these three properties every time with their names for the object. we better define the constructor. Init is a name of the constructor in Python. Is that okay? Init stands to initialize. It accepts few values as argument, and whatever it accepts as argument is assigned to the properties. Okay, I think this is where we had stopped the last class at, so we'll continue from here. Navin is asking, ma'am, what is an iterator? Now, let me tell you, or let me make your question, refine your question a little more. Maybe what are iterables? Okay, iterables are all those objects where we can iterate with the help of for loop. Like number one, your list is an iterable. Because it has multiple elements, it can be iterated upon using for loop. Set is an iterable. Dictionary is an iterable. And a tuple is an iterable. So all these are nothing but iterables. That means the one whom upon we can iterate element by element. Okay, now if it is still not clear, let me know. I'll help you with some other examples. Okay, fine. Okay, people, fine. So let's quickly have a look at this class, or let's do one thing. Say day19.py. Okay, and I create a class called as a person. Assuming every person will have name, will have age, and will have some address. These three properties common. Let me quickly code a constructor of the class underscore init underscore. The first argument of any function in the class should be always self. Self always point to the name of the caller, people. That means the one who is currently calling this constructor or the function. Right? If A1 is calling the constructor, self will assume the value of A1. A2 is calling the constructor, self will be substituted in the code by the name A2. तो जिधर भी self लिखा है वहाँ A2 dot या A2 आ जाएगा. Okay. So let me accept some three arguments here, A, B, C. Okay. And the class person has three properties, as I told you, assuming every person has some name, has some age, and has some address. So self.name will be receiving incoming value A and assign to itself. Self.age will be B, will assign the incoming value B to itself. And the property self.address will assign the incoming value of C to itself. I hope you got my point. Is that okay? All of us here? Fine. Okay. Next, let us okay, I'll come to your question, Navin, again. I'll come to it. Fine. Next. Now, let me directly create object of this class. Or even before. Acha, okay, fine. Let's go to create it. So, let me say P is a object. Person, opening closing round brackets here point to the constructor of the class, correct? It points to the constructor as if we are creating object of person by calling the constructor here. So this is a direct call to the constructor. But if I run this line of code like this, okay, if I run this line of code like this, it will tell me no, that there's an let me say this is an error because the constructor accepts 3 argument and you have passed none. Okay, so let me say my name is Raj, my age is 34, and my address I'm writing in short, let me say New Delhi. Okay, fine. So object created, and if I want to print these values, so I say print, say p dot name. Let me print one property first. Okay, Raj. So p dot age and p dot address. Alright. I hope you got my point. Now one thing, try to understand this task also seems to be very like, I can't say difficult, but irritating. आप बात समझ रहे हो what am I talking? That means, what do you want to say? If there are 100 objects of this class person, 100 of the person's detail हम ऐसा print करते बैठेंगे? You understood? No. Although it's not difficult, doesn't mean you should do it. Although it is not lengthy, or maybe it is not difficult, or maybe it is not hard, doesn't mean you should end up coding, correct? Fine. So because this is common, every person details should be printed after getting initialized. जब हर पर्सन का डिटेल प्रिंट करना ही है, तो why don't you create this printing as a common function in the class? That makes sense, right? After creating an object, if you want to print the detail of that object, so why to write this one line of code, writing the names of all the properties again? What if I've forgotten the names of these property? What if I end up writing N capital here? Am I right? Python is case sensitive. It will tell me no such property found. Is that okay? So why should I take efforts to remember the names of these properties, typing them? So a better solution is you come in the definition of the class. If the constructor has initialized the values to the properties, this time let us see how to create a function in the class. Okay, so let me create a function called as def, say display. Okay, display is a function who will display the values of all the properties. There can be many more functions. For example, after accepting age, there is a function in the class person who will tell you whether you are eligible to drive or not. आप ड्राइविंग के लिए एलिजिबल है कि नहीं, आप वोटिंग के लिए एलिजिबल है कि नहीं, आप सीनियर सिटीजन है कि नहीं. गेटिंग इट? So these all also can be considered as a functions in the class. Right? So as of now, I am coding for a function display who will print the properties of the class or the values of these properties. Mind you, take this point as the first key takeaway from the class today. आज की पहली काम की बात अभी तक. Every function in the class always have first argument as self. I hope you got my point. Concept clearly, every argument, or let me say every function will have the first argument, that is self. Although we have committed this point last time as well, but still again, any function, be it a constructor, be it any ordinary function, हर function का पहला argument is going to be self, and self always point at the caller, the one who is calling the object of the function. Please one more time, self always point, my friends. A pointer इशारा करता है, it points at the object who is calling the function. Okay, we'll see more better way the meaning of this with the help of an example upcoming now. So let me say print. Can I use a format string function? Okay, so this is self.name, self.address, and self.age. Right. I hope you'll have remembered. Intentionally I took this format string function here, or a format method here, so that we don't tend to forget that. Correct, fine. Now what will happen here is, see, you don't have to print this all details manually. All that you have to do, let object call the function display. गलती से भी इधर self मत लिखना. That is not expected. The self as an argument is expected in the definition of the class, not in the function call. Hoping you are understanding that point. Self as an argument is expected. It is expected in the definition of the class or definition of the function in the class. Alright, Rakesh is asking, ma'am, in sub details को dictionary की तरह as argument. Yes, Rakesh, yes, of course, as a dictionary, right? Okay, let me show you that how to do it. Let me show you. Fine, let me first complete this basic code. Dictionary also, list also. Alright, that's correct. Fine, that your question in fact makes sense. Okay, so I run all these. Fine, so that prints nothing but Raj, New Delhi, and something 34. Hoping you are understanding my point. Concept clearly fine. All of us understood. Okay. What next I wanted to show you? Fine. So this is nothing but the properties, and this is nothing but a function. One more time. This is nothing but the properties defined in the constructor. and this is nothing but a function of the class. I hope people are understanding. Concept clear, all of you? ठीक है? All right. Now, what is the main thing that we are learning today is, most important thing we are learning today is, that is inheritance. One minute. Okay, so this is the main topic for the class today, that is object oriented programming part 2, that is inheritance. Alright, first of all, the English meaning of the word inheritance is to inherit something from the ancestor. Is that okay? I repeat the point again, to inherit something, like you inherit a lot of things from your parents. Your parents would have inherited lot of things from their parents or your great-grandparents. That means receiving things from our ancestors, right? कोई चीज़ ऐसा पारंपरिक आपको वारिसदार के रूप में मिलना, that is how we speak in Hindi ideally. ठीक है? So inheritance is nothing but code reusability from one class to another. Okay, reusing the same code in the program so that existing class can be made use to create a new class. Alright, now I tell you when do we do that. Ma'am, can we use F format entire Python? Yes, Navin, yes, you can do that. Of course you can do that. Okay, you can of course do that. F function. Okay, now pay attention please. I'm talking about inheritance here. Say we created a class function here. Am I right? I'm sorry, class person. My mistake, class person here. But even student is a person. Employee is a person. Customer is a person. I know one thing very well. Each of them will have name, age, address common. But there are certain things which is uncommon among them. Like student has marks. I will never associate the property marks with customer, correct? Customers might have something called as contact number or maybe customer ID, which we may not associate it with the student. Employees have something that is salary, which we may not associate with customer or a student. But one thing is very clear, these three different people as a person will always have three things common. That is name, age and address. So now you look, I'm so smart here. How smart we are. Now when we create a class student, when we create a class student has to have four properties. Say name of the student, age of the student, address of the student and marks. Now what is my point of argument here? Why should I rewrite these 4 lines of code again when I have already done in one of the class above, correct? Whether the design or a model is for student, for a customer, for an employee, for a doctor, for a patient, different designations or different profile. अरे बट भाई सबका नाम पता, ये चीज़ें तो कॉमन है. तो इन चीज़ों को वैल्यू देने के लिए हम दोबारा वही कोड क्यों रिपीट करें? So it makes sense to borrow the code. You understand borrowing? I borrow something from you. मैंने आपसे कुछ लिया, उधार लिया या सिर्फ ले लिया या मे बी बाद में कुछ देने के लिए अभी लिया. So it makes sense to borrow that repeating code from some master class, super class, main class, the class which has been already defined above, into the child class. Hope you got my point. That's called as nothing but code reusability. The design which is common between the two models, the design or the code which is common between the two class must be reused. I hope you got my point. Fine. So let's see how to do that. First of all, before I could go ahead, there are 3 major types of inheritances. In Python, there are 3 inheritance, people. Firstly, called as a simple inheritance. And you can yourself understand why it is so simple, because there is exactly one base class. Base means the parent class. And there is exactly one derive class. Derive means the child class who is borrowing the code from the parent class. Got it? मैंने आपसे borrow किया, मांगा. Please acknowledge to me in the chat section. Are you understanding or not? मैंने आपसे मांगा, so I'm a borrower. Or maybe I'm an inheritor. I'm inheriting some code from you. So one parent, one child. That's a simple inheritance. In fact, in most of the cases, your work will be done by the simple inheritance itself. Next, called as a multi-level inheritance. This is a little one level up, or maybe the higher ideology. What happens here, you see, before I could read the definition, there are many derived classes here. You could see that. Say class 2, it is derived from class 1. Good, thank you Naveen, thank you for that. Class 2 derived from class 1. Then class 3 derived from class 2. I hope you're understanding. Then maybe class 4 derived from class 3. Then class 5 derived from class 4. In this way, ऐसे चलते चलते class n derived from class n minus 1. Hoping you're getting that point. Is that okay? All of us. For example, there is a class called as vehicle. Then there is another class called as SUV or XUV, that is a type of vehicle. Then there is another class which is called as a class car. Okay, so now this type of vehicle, SUV, XUV or whatever it is, I may not be so much knowledgeable about it. Okay, that is actually derived from vehicle. And class car is derived from this type of vehicle. That is, car is a type of SUV, or car is a kind of XUV, or car is a kind of some other category. But indirectly this other category is a subclass of the master class vehicle. So are you understanding how this chain rolling is connected up in the hierarchy? Is that okay? How this fully this chain is connected up in the hierarchy. Okay, if I could write this in point, this is how I said, say class vehicle. Okay, vehicle, class A. Then उसके नीचे आता है class type of vehicle, which is again derived from vehicle. Okay, because in the type of vehicle also I have the same common properties that vehicle will have. Say it's a 4-wheeler or it's a 2-wheeler. I hope you got my point. Is that okay? Or maybe it's the 4-seater or maybe 100-seater, say it's a bus. So even a type of vehicle will have all the same properties that vehicle has, except one or two. Maybe the types. That is type of a vehicle is an XUV or SUV, etc. And then eventually I have a class called as car. Okay, which is again inheriting type of vehicle. Okay, who is indirectly inheriting vehicle. I hope you got my point. So, as per this algebraic law of transitivity, A is equal to B, B is equal to C. So, of course, C is also equal to A. So, the same thing you can tell here, B is connected to A, C is connected to B. That means C is also connected to A indirectly via B. Please acknowledge to me in the chat section, this concept clear or not. That's a multi-level inheritance. Is this example clear? People, inheritance समझना बहुत important है. Object oriented programming को समझना बहुत important. If you are indeed opting to work in full stack. Is that okay? We don't like, but this is how the concept of programming goes. Everything should be constructed as in the form of an object. Alright. In fact, Python deals anything as an object. Date variable, it's a date object. Integer variable, it's an integer object. Are you understanding it? Clear, ma'am. Thank you. How about others of my friends who are here? Shreyas was here, I think. Navin was here. He is still here. Okay, fine. Even others whose name I'm not calling them out, but still expecting you all are understanding my example. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is nothing but a multi-level inheritance. Okay, now when I go to multiple inheritance, it provides us the flexibility to inherit. In practically, we definitely understand the code. Okay, ठीक है नवीन, चलेगा. We will come to the practical concept shortly. Okay, multiple inheritance Come on, it provides us the flexibility to inherit multiple base classes. Let's not look at the diagram first now. Let's try to break the meaning of this point. What it wants to say, inherit multiple base class in a child class. Now actually यहाँ पर भी वही हो रहा है. This is a child class, say class n. It is inheriting so many main classes, or say, let me say the parent classes, class 1, class 2, but not directly. They are all indirectly, correct? Maybe one is direct, the others are indirect. Is that okay? Say there are total 10 classes. Class number 10 is inheriting directly only class number 9. Rest all the classes it is inheriting indirectly, correct or not? Right? But here this is not a concept. If you could see the diagram, okay, multiple inheritance here. So one derived class can be inherited directly from the main classes. Okay, I tell you why do we do that. ये कब करना होता है? Now suppose you don't want to connect class 1 and class 2 among itself. Okay, I don't want to share anything between class 1 and class 2, or maybe class 1 don't want to talk to class 3 via 2. You understood? I repeat the point again. See, say I don't want to talk to Naveen via Rakesh. I want to talk to Naveen directly. Is it for me? Why should I deliver the conversation to Rakesh first? Or Rakesh, don't take it seriously. I'm just giving an example. Is that okay? भाई मैं राकेश से वो बातें क्यों बताऊँ जो मुझे एक्चुअली नवीन से बात का बोलना है या डिलीवर करना है. So let me deal with the guy who I want to exchange information with directly. Is that okay? Fine. So here you see the derived class is directly connected to main classes. That is class 1, class 2, class 3. So we have so many base classes here, and a derived class can have this facility to inherit multiple base class. Alright, fine. Let's quickly start. If not all the three, let's code for at least 2, the first one and the second one. Third one you will automatically understand how to go about it. Alright, fine. So let's go ahead please. This is my Visual Studio Code, and I continue the same code. Okay, first of all, syntax people. Okay, syntax for inheritance. Okay, not only simple but any inheritance like this. Say if a base class is derived from if a derived class is derived from a base class, then this is how we write the code. Okay, say class B derived from A. Yes, of course, Naveen, these are the types of inheritance. I told you 3, but in fact there are more than 3 also. There is one more inheritance called as a hybrid, but there is a rare chance we would ever use it. कभी भी use में आएगा, काम में आएगा. These are the 3 key inheritances. This is how you have to remember. Alright, friends, everyone who is attending the class here online with us. Any interface concept in Python? Okay, a very good question Shreyas is asking. Like, do we have any interface concept in Python? Shreyas, look, we have some classes, we have some modules and libraries that we can import and create some form of interface project or interface concept like Tinker and all. Okay, you can easily import Tinker, and with the help of Tinker you can create some small minor interfaces, but let me tell you the real point to it. Python is generally used as a backend. Understood? So we are not interested in designing any interface with Python. Understood? तो Python का काम full stack में अक्सर होता है backend की तरफ काम करना, and backend never needs any interface. So when it comes to design interface or the interface concept, we always integrate JavaScript or HTML, CSS or React Angular with Python. Are you understanding? Fine. We try to integrate these programming languages or these tools and frameworks in the Python project. I hope you got my point. For interface concept he's talking about. If I'm not wrong, Shreyas, you're talking interface means what? Text box and all, right? You're expecting interface like a text box or some kind of control where user can input the data as a form, correct? If this is what you're asking, this is what is my answer. Python never does that job. Okay, ये काम करने के लिए हम Python को कभी यूज करते ही नहीं है. किसी तरह आपने कर भी दिया तो I think there are tools better than Python who can do that. Okay, Naveen, that is what is the meaning of interface over here. Alright, fine. Chaliye. So this is the syntax of class, or let me say inheritance. This is a derived class and it is made from a base class, that is A. Right? So if class student, come on, this is a class student, people, and it has to derive from person, so I simply write here person. Okay, class student derive from class person, and remember, student here need to have 4 properties. Student has a name, student has an age, student has address, student has marks. I repeat, name, address, age and marks. So let me define the constructor of student. Okay, let me define the constructor of student. Okay, if time permit, I'll talk about this automatic code which has come here. As of now, let me code the concept first. Okay, so that is self A, B, C, D. Alright, now how will you generally write the code for this? Come on, self dot name is equals to A, self dot age is equals to B, self dot what should I write, address is equals to C, and self dot who's that, marks is equals to D. But then suddenly I realize how the fool I am to write these 3 lines of code again. Is that okay? How the fool I am to write these 3 lines of code again, because this 3 lines of code is already mentioned in my parent class, right? And I'm inheriting the parent class, so let me reuse this block of code, correct or not? So how will I do that? Method number one, let me get this code repetition out. Okay, I got rid of that part of the code which was been repeated. First, to initialize name, age and address, here's open, try to understand. To initialize values to name, age and address, I will call the constructor of the parent class here. ये काम वो ऊपर करता है, right or not? Am I right? Please again, the parent class constructor is doing this work. We have created that constructor to do this job only, right? Then why the child constructor should repeat that job again? So the child class constructor is very smart. It says, let me call the constructor of my parent to do this work, correct or not? I'm already inheriting it. So let me call the constructor from my parent. How? Okay, how? You see. So I write here. What is the name of the parent? That is person dot underscore init. Are you understanding? Fine. Person dot init. Why you need to write person dot init? Of course, this is name of the class followed by the constructor of the class which you want to call upon. Constructor is same, that is init. आप खाली init नहीं लिख सकते हो. You can't write just init because the compiler will be confused here. Init is the name of the constructor. Whose constructor? Student is also a class, person is also a class. So this is the call to whose constructor, right? So please call the constructor of person init. But this constructor accepts 3 arguments, right? So what will I do is, let me write the first one as self, followed by, out of the 4 arguments that child is receiving, people, this is where many people get confused. You don't, please. Child constructor is receiving 4 arguments, right? Out of these 4 arguments, 3 of them I will pass to the parent constructor. Okay? Child ने वही 3 argument को in turn, you understand, in turn इन टर्न अपने आप में रिसीव करने के बाद हैज पास टू द पेरेंट कंस्ट्रक्टर. सो सेल्फ कॉमा A comma B comma C. Alright, A comma B comma C. Right, now what will happen? Tell me. A, B, C, this will be received up by the parent constructor, and parent constructor will assign these values respectively to the properties, that is name, age and address. So we saved our work by not rewriting the same code again. Correct or not? अब बच गया आपका चौथा आर्ग्यूमेंट, दैट इज डी. हाउ अबाउट डी? ओके, सो द चाइल्ड क्लास सेज ओके डी का काम मैं करूंगा. व्हाट टू डू विद डी दैट आई विल हैंडल. गॉट इट? सो व्हाट इट डज इज सेल्फ डॉट मार्क्स, विच दिस वॉज नॉट द प्रॉपर्टी मेंशन इन द पेरेंट क्लास. सेल्फ डॉट मार्क्स दैट इज इक्वल टू डी. Alright, I would be glad if someone acknowledged to me in the chat section, is this part of the code clear or not? Especially this line number 13 here. Okay, by the time I read what Shreyas is asking, ma'am, sorry, I mean to say in Java, to achieve multiple inheritance with the help of interface. Oh, no. Okay, no. No, there is no interface concept here. If you're asking that way, those interfaces, if you're asking, no, answer is no then. Okay, I thought that you're asking about the GUI, graphics user interface, Shreyas. Okay, I thought you're asking about GUI, graphics user interface. So answer is no to your question. There is no such concept of interface here. We just keep importing modules and making modules. Good. Okay, fine. D is child class. D is not a child class. D is a property in the child class, or assigned to the property in the child class. Got it? Fine. Okay, and there is one more way you can do that. And suppose you don't want to write the name of the parent class. So instead of that, we can also use the function super. Hoping you're understanding. We can also make use of the function super. Super automatically inherit the properties of the parent class. राइट, तो यहां पर सुपर लिखना या पर्सन लिखना एक ही बात है. Okay, writing super or writing person, that is one and the same thing. Many people don't prefer to write the names of the parent classes. Therefore, we end up using the word super, who indirectly points to the super class. And who is the super class here? The person. Are you getting it? So, two concept one and the same here. ठीक है. Fine, so this is how we are working. Alright, next let's create one more function also called as display. The first argument needs to be self. I want to display all the 4 properties of the student now. चारों चार प्रॉपर्टी, उसका नाम, उसका एज, उसका मार्क्स, उसका एड्रेस, everything I want to display. But then again I realize why should I repeat that code again? 1 minute. Okay, why should I repeat? Because in the parent class this function is already printing 3 of the properties, right? So let me call this function of the parent class here in the child class. Again, you make use of super function, or you write the name of the class, that is one and the same. So I say person.display first. Make sure the argument self is the first one, because that is going to point to the caller who is calling these functions, objects and classes, correct? Or the constructor. Right? So out of 4 properties, 3 of them been already displayed by the person class. I just have to write the code to display the property which is a marks as an additional property here, correct? Okay, additional property here. So let me just say print. What should I write here? I think self dot marks. Is that okay? All of us understanding? ठीक है. Okay, now let me go to create a object of class student. Come on, object of class student. Say S1 is my student. Okay, if 2 parent classes, how do we use super class, ma'am? No, then you make use of better the names of the class. Navin. Okay, that thing, or let me say, that will contradict in your multiple inheritance. ओके ऐसा इशू आपका मल्टीपल इनहेरिटेंस में आ सकता है, वेदर आर मोर देन 2 पेरेंट क्लास और मोर देन 1 पेरेंट क्लास. दिस वर्क्स ओनली फॉर सिंपल एंड मल्टी लेवल इनहेरिटेंस, अ कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सुपर. ठीक है, चलिए. सो दिस इज स्टूडेंट, and because the constructor accepts 4 argument, you see class student is here, constructor is accepting 4 arguments, so I pass the 4 argument. Say name of the student, for example Rahul, age of the student, set, let me write it here as 18, address of the student I am writing again New Delhi, marks of the student I am writing, say consider that marks is a percentage here, I wanted to write 87. Okay, fine. Okay, I think I executed line number 20 without executing the above code. 1 minute please. Let it go on. After some time my Visual Studio Code becomes a bit slower. We have some kind of bandwidth issue here. Okay, when I connect myself to the OBS Studio. Okay, fine. So the object created, and then now when I say s1.display, s1.display, okay, so it is displaying all the details as been defined. Am I right? Now suppose I have one more class. Before that, can you tell me how all this worked? Rahul 18, New Delhi 87. These values were passed to the student constructor. So these values were received here by the student constructor. Now out of these 4 values, Rahul 18 and New Delhi were in turn passed to person constructor. Correct? Student ने उसे person को pass कर दिया. Person initialized these 3 values to the properties, returned back, and the last value, which was 87, was initialized to the property marks by the student class itself. Right? I hope you are understanding that. Same thing happened when you call the display also. Let's think I have already called display, right? Yes, so when I say s1.display, it will first call the student class display function, who in turn will call the super class ka display function. I hope you got my point. Fine. Now let's say we have one more class here, student, because a student also can be, let me say, a junior college student, maybe a degree college student, or maybe say a PG student, post graduation, MBA, MCA, or maybe say a school student, like who's in standard 8th, 9th or 10th. You understand? A student is a person. Type of student is always a student, correct? Type of student will always be a student. Okay, so let me create another class here. That is class student type. Okay, student type, who is actually inheriting student. Right? So now student becomes a base class and student type becomes a derived class. Let's quickly create the constructor here. That's in it. Okay, and I'm going to accept 5 arguments, because whoever is a student will definitely have the name, age and all, right? So A, B, C, D and E. Yes, always we give names to the argument, that makes sense, but because we always have, we are short of time, so I keep giving them in short A, B, C, D. I hope at home back you're writing a perfect code. But out of that, A, B, C, D, that is name, age, marks and what was that, address. People, this values to be assigned, the code is already written up in the student class, right? This code is already present here. So why should I repeat this code again? So let me directly call the constructor of the student class inside the type of student first. Okay, so either super dot or student dot name of the constructor that is in it. Okay, argument that is self, who will point at the color of the object or the color of the constructor or function, like s1 or s2. So out of these 5 arguments that I received, 4 of them, उनमें से 4 को let me pass inside the student. Right? So A, B, C, D. And if you pass E, it will return me an error because the constructor of the parent class accepts only 4 arguments. So you can't pass the 5th one. तो E का क्या किया जाए भाई? E का क्या किया जाए? उसे तो आपको अलग से इनिशियलाइज करना ही पड़ेगा. You can't escape from this concern here. So let me say self dot type is equals to E. Okay, self dot type that is equal to E. Right? Same thing, I create a display function as well. Come on, display function. That's display. Okay, next class I will talk about what is method overriding. Every time I'm using the function display, every time I'm overriding this method present in the parent class. Okay, so self, and I go ahead. So let me, to print this 4 details A, B, C, D, let me first class the display function from the parent class. Who is the parent here? That is student, right? So student dot display. Okay, student dot display, but it is going to display only A, B, C, D. The detail of type has to be printed exclusively in the student type class. Right? So I say print self dot type. Okay, print self dot type. Hoping people are understanding it. Is that okay? Fine. So the last thing that now we are left with is to create an object of student type. So let me say S2 is equal to student type, but student type is going to accept 5 arguments from you. So let me say the name of the student is, say, Mukesh. Okay, this guy has an age, say 21, and say he lives somewhere in Mumbai, and say he's a PG student, he's not a school student. He's a PG student, he's not a school student or some junior college student or not an undergraduate student. Right? Okay, because I did not run this code. I need to execute this code. Okay, and finally I say s2 dot display. Alright, understanding here. Okay, s2 is not defined. Student type. Okay. People, could you see that one argument is still missing? E. Okay, one argument is still missing, that is E. So what do I do? Let me say this is marks as 55. Okay, done, and that is how it has printed. Hoping people are understanding. Is the concept clear? All of you? All right. Right, so this is how we have achieved simple inheritance. We have achieved multi-level inheritance. Alright, now for multiple, what you have to do is multiple. Say I have a class called as class demo. Okay, class demo, and this is going to inherit both the class, so person also and student also. Right, so that means this time one class is being inherited from multiple classes. Hoping you understand. Yeah? One class that has been inherited from multiple class. Hoping you understand. One good example of multiple inheritance practically that is working, we shall again continue with in the next session. Alright, take it. Now try to understand one thing. See, what are we remaining with? Okay, I am yet remaining to show you. First of all, access specifiers. That is public, private, and protected. Okay, we are going to talk about encapsulation. We are going to talk about abstraction in Python. I hope you got my point. We are going to talk about polymorphism in Python. Okay, polymorphism. Alright, we are also going to talk, okay, inheritance we have already done today, so I am marking it as done. Inheritance. Okay, fine. We have a connected class at 6 p.m. That's the reason not continuing with the multiple inherited, but that's okay. That's hardly 5 minutes more it would take for us to go ahead with the code. So if there is one class derived from 3 classes, how will you say that? Class C derived from A, B, or let me say this is class D derived from A, B, and C. Is that okay? So this is how the syntax goes. Rest everything is same. Alright, fine. So if you have a constructor here, how will you do that? Say def init. Okay, init. Say it has to accept 5 arguments. A, B, C, D, or let us say only 4 arguments. First will be initialized by class A, so I will say A dot init. Practice back at your home, please. Okay, A. Okay. Next one, suppose has to be initialized by class B constructor. Class B constructor. So let me write this part as this is B dot something. Okay, and the thirdly, if I want class C to do it, so I simply write it as C. Okay, that is C. Hoping you're understanding. Fine. And the lastly, if you want to have the property, that is D, so let me say self dot D is equal to D. Finish. So that means in one class this time you are calling the constructor of multiple classes. Alright, hoping people are understanding. All of us here. Fine. Okay. Alright, so access specifier is yet left to be done. Encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism is yet left to be done. Inheritance is what we have already done. Alright, so all these things we are going to talk about in our Friday's session and complete the concept of inheritance altogether. Yes, the next class is on Friday. Right? Hoping people are understanding and you have done here. Okay, all of us, fine. That's all for the day today, girls and boys, fine. And have sent the attendance link as well. Right? Make sure that you're signing your attendance, fine. Any doubt, please reach us out on our personal contact. That's all. Goodbye.